Well, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. It's such an honor to be called upon to really give training to. I just actually came from giving a detailer brief in the Mayport Jacksonville area, so maybe some of your spouses heard my brief live in person. So it was really awesome. Chief season is one of those really amazing, unique, one of a time experiences in a sailor's career. Any good goat, as we call ourselves in the Chiefs mess, will tell you that's where we get primed up and excited to welcome and train our future brothers and sisters in the mess. And but before I kick anything off, I always start my detailer briefs with the thing that's most important. I think this is why I'm really happy to be able to do this. Is I have been in the Navy over 20 years now, and I have been married to my high school sweetheart. My other half of the orange, as I call her, Mrs. Diaz, Priscilla Diaz, and she has been with me. We've been married now 21, going on 22 years. So the entire time I've been in the military, in the Navy, she has been with me every step of the way. And I say that because, man, 150%. Without her, there is no Senior Chief Diaz. There is no Luis Diaz for that matter. But most importantly, like she is definitely one of the greatest driving forces in my life and in my career. And again, could not do it without her. So the job of the military spouse is an amazing job and an amazing honor to be able to talk to you all today. And I have a family of six. We're the Diaz six. I have four children. My oldest daughter is turning 21 on the 15th, pinning day. And my second oldest daughter, she'll be turning 19 on the 17th. My son is 16. He just turned 16 in July. And my youngest daughter turned 14 last month as well. And so again, so as you see, probably my first one, a Navy family through and through. And the Diaz clan has not been in the same pace geographically greater than a 2.5, 3 year period. I started my Navy career out in Everett, Washington, on board an aircraft carrier, the Abraham Lincoln. And then from there, we took our show on the road to Lemoore, California, and we were there for about 2.5 years.
Oh, it's probably just more exciting than everything.
And then from there, we took our road back to the Pacific Northwest, where I was stationed on board another carrier, the Stennis, for about 4 years, and that was in Bremerton, Washington. And then we got the call to finally enjoy some shore duty down in Pensacola, Florida, and that's where I went through chief initiation and went through my CPO season. And so I did that and was there stationed there for about 2.5, almost 3 years. We took the band moved again to Norfolk, Virginia, where I was over there with the EOD and Navy diver commands. And from there, I ended up getting a taste of the international life, and we got stationed in Yokosuka, Japan, over on the LCC-19 Blue Ridge flagship, which was an amazing opportunity on many fronts. Definitely for the family. We're big Disney people, so we got to go to Tokyo Disney and enjoy all that. And then when I was there, I got the opportunity to actually run two CPO seasons. And one of the cool events that I got to do there as a season lead was to do that CPO spouse family day. And it was really awesome. So, as was said at the very beginning, if there is one, and there should be one in every season, right, as we integrate families to show the importance of family in the Navy life and the Chief Petty Officer life. I wholeheartedly encourage you to be there. A lot of the Q&As directly on what maybe is specific to your area, specific to the Chiefs mess, opportunities, just communication is right there. And so I encourage everyone to definitely to attend those. They're made intentionally to provide that information and insight to the Navy spouses and families. And so from there, we took our show again on the road, and I got the call to be the detailer for the Navy counselor in legal men communities, and I have been here with my family since uh, October of 2024. And I always start there with my trainings because a lot of the questions that I get all the time as a detailer really does surround family impact to PCS moves and the impact of promotion and the impact of childcare, medical care, and things of that nature. And so I always love to start out with that, like, hey, I am a family man through and through. I have been and have moved many, many times. So I understand the PCS worries and constraints, and I've even been deployed for some of those PCSs. And so, my number one MVP, best wife in the world, no offense to anybody, all right, has had to do some of those on her own. And again, so I understand all those things, and I like to start there as a position of compassion. Like I get it, and that's why I love to do these trainings. So with that, I mean, right now the Navy is changing the way that they do advancement for the first time in many decades to what is called the senior enlisted marketplace. And the basis of that is to provide opportunities for commands and for sailors to be able to advance to a vacant position once they find out the great news that they have been selected for either chief petty officer, senior chief petty officer, or master chief petty officer. And these opportunities via the SEM program with many recent changes allow for the possibility of geographical, what we call like stabilization, meaning you're able to potentially stay at the same command if there is a billet available there. And all these changes for that have been coming out have actually yielded a lot of great results. We have been growing in the process, making some changes to help make it easier for sailors and families. But ultimately, we have seen that out of the billets that are out there, we are filling a lot of them that would not have been filled before. So it is a process that is ever evolving and growing, but it is statistically been successful. So I'd like to kind of pause there and start addressing some of the questions I got here on the side in the midst of the conversation. And if I don't know if we want to do questions in the midst or just save them till the end. Miss Jenna?
Yeah, if you want to give like an overview, I think people are kind of like of the ones I sent ahead of time, and then we'll let some specific ones come in at the end when I stop the recording. That way everyone's comfortable asking their question.
Okay, perfect. Good so far. I'm not going too fast.
No, I think it's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, outstanding. All right, so really, the big question, and I probably have a lot in my I have answered a lot in my inbox recently, is the excitement of getting selected for chief, and the next question is, okay, so what's next? What is the next step? And so step one ultimately is with the new guidance that has come out, right? CPO initiation is now a mandatory process in order to be advanced to chief petty officer. And so what we have been doing here on the detailing front is ensuring that anyone that potentially has, because I see one of the questions is, what if somebody has orders right now? Are they going to be able to finish the chief season? Yes. So right now we are working towards ensuring that those sailors that are within this time frame before September are given the opportunity to finish. And the CPO SEM cycle, as we call it, right? The Senior Listen Marketplace cycle for Chief Petty Officer specifically starts in October. So in October is when all chiefs, all newly pinned chiefs, will be able to go into My Navy assignment. That's the detailer system that every sailor uses, and will be able to go in there and select for a chief petty officer billet. And based off of what is available there, and depending on how many other chiefs compete and apply for that billet, they will all get what's called racked and stacked, which means they're going to be like it's competitive based off a point scale. And we call that point scale the sailor scoring criteria. And that criteria entertains, for example, how much sea time one has, what kind of preferences one has in the system, the number, the application preference. For example, if you have five billets, which one does the sailor, the chief, make their number one choice, vice their number two, three, and so on and so forth? So more points get allocated for a number one pick. And so then the command also has the ability to see how many people have applied and rank them one through five. And based off of that ranking, that they get allocated points for that. So their number one pick gets a certain amount of points. And so ultimately, the person who has the most points at the end of the selection window time frame is the one who will get selected for the billet. And so that is one of the ways that you can get selected for a chief petty officer billet when the cycle concludes in November. So it starts in October, so they'll start picking in October, and it'll conclude in November timeframe. Now, with the SEM process, there's also what's called an advanced position possibility, where if there is a gap or availability at the command for a chief position, the command itself can request at the beginning of the cycle, the beginning of the negotiation cycle, they can actually request to have that service member, that new chief, fill that job as long as that billet A is available and that chief petty officer now says, okay, I'll do the 3 years of obligated service, observe that obligated service time to be able to ensure I do a full tour at this command. And not only at that command, but let's say there's two ships right next to each other or two bases right next to each other. So in the same geographical location, if they're under the same what's called type commander, the TICOM, they are able to then also get that chief petty officer. Maybe there's no availability at their command, but the one right next to them has availability, and they fall under that same like a little tree, right? They fall under their same umbrella. They can advance to position to that other billet. So there's a lot of opportunities there to advance, whereas before that was not possible. So that's one of the good benefits of the senior enlisted marketplace and advanced to position. Now, all with that, right? What's also important to family? What's important to family is okay. Well, what about if we have what's called an exceptional family member, an EFM family member, an EFM dependent, and that there are medical needs that obviously need to be taken into consideration when selecting a billet. That's where, and this is where we talk to the chiefs and talk to sailors about ensuring that the billet that you apply for is able to meet the needs of family. So even though there's a advancement position available, let's say in Lemoore, California, for example, let's say there's an advancement position available there. But if that location isn't available to provide the level of care necessary to provide that support medically for that family, the sailor will not be able to, that chief will not be able to execute those orders because that will be flagged by our medical code PERS 454, and then they won't be able to go there. But that's where conversation and an up-to-date EFM profile is important, and having those early conversations and reaching out and ensuring that this is a possibility for the family. Now, the other part is what about if the service member, right, is military and married to another service member, military, mill to mill? How does that play a factor? Well, with the senior enlisted marketplace, the person who is negotiating via senior enlisted marketplace, SEM, would take priority in selecting a billet. Now, it depends if one is on sea duty and shore duty. We want to ensure that the policy is in place so that we don't have both spouses on simultaneous sea duty. We don't want both of them deployed and not have anybody home to take care of the children, of the dependents. And so ultimately the only way to bypass that, even via advancement via SIM, is to make sure that we submit the proper documentation and enlisted personnel action request, saying that, for example, let's say there are no dependents and it's just the two hard-charging military spouses that are, chugging along and promoting, and they're okay with doing a simultaneous deployment because they're trying to make that next pay grade and it's good on their promotion opportunities. So they would submit paperwork and provided that it gets approved, then they would be able to do that. But again, ultimately, without that documentation in place, we would ensure that there is somebody always on shore to take care of the home front while the other spouse is out doing God's work out there, out to sea. And so what we see here, and this is a good point of conversation, and I see a lot of the questions are really about that, is families PCSing, and what are the most important things that we really want to make sure how the detailing process affects. And like I said before, this is command number 6 going on number 7 for the Diaz family. And the big thing about the detailing process that I have learned since being here that I wasn't really as schooled or well versed on the process here is that ultimately everything happens on a rotation date time frame. So these newly selected CPOs, when they select for orders in October, if their rotation time frame, so normally tours are 3 to 4 years in length. If they're not within that time frame, normally if they get selected for a billet, we set orders for a transfer time frame of at least 12 months. And the reason for that is one, we don't want to leave the command that the new chief is currently at without a potential relief, somebody to replace them. But we also want to not immediately PCS someone so quickly where we're uprooting a family and the sailor without the ability to get all of those affairs in order to the best of the ability, to our ability, right? That there are obviously mitigating circumstances that may be out of our control, but for the most part, we want to give enough time for a good PCS move, especially if you have just recently gotten to the area. And so when we're talking about PCS moves, the time frame of I'm myself I'm going through this as well. Uh, there is there's a misnomer that as soon as a sailor gets selected for a billet, uh, that automatically means they'll get uh, orders, hard copy orders, what's called. It's that documentation, which if you've ever done PCS moves, that's probably, and you're trying to get into like military housing or things of that nature, that's the first thing they ask you for. Where are the hard copy orders, right? And so, my wife always asks me, hey, so when are we getting our hard copy orders? And so that process, even though you may be selected very early on within that 12-month selection period, it ultimately comes down to funding and costing. And depending on how much funding there is available, is when orders the money will get funneled to fill those orders to be released. And so that is something definitely to know and to consider is that it may be a little bit of time before you actually get those hard copy orders. But within 6 months of that detachment, though, it is possible to request from the detailer a letter of instruction and an LOI. And that LOI, while it doesn't have what's called a line of accounting or authorize any household good moves, it does formally state that you will be receiving orders and have not received them yet, and to be able to start things like screenings and to be able to potentially talk to housing and sometimes depending on the location, they do accept the LOI in place of the orders in the meantime. And definitely the screening processes. Detailing and screenings, particularly overseas, the way my family and I went to, can be a bit tedious, especially if there are many medical appointments that must be met in order to positively screen and favorably screen for the next tour of duty. So all those things are best to be accomplished as early as possible. So having that communication with the detailer, your chief spouse, having that relationship of communication with the detailer is always best. And that way she sets up family for success. Let's see here. And I think for the most part, that was the general over the top um, questions that I see that we got sent. Some of are a bit more specific.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to stop the recording now. There are a couple questions in the chat that I'll go ahead and read. Um, is there anything you would like to say before we stop the recording? I know, can you kind of share where on the website that maybe spouses can go to see information about this or anything like that?
Yes, so the best source of information that we have is My Navy HR. My Navy HR is the one-stop shop for all naval information. It's a public website, updated very frequently. I mean, you can even see in there the latest naval administration messages of any potential changes. But the location where I always tend to, there you go, that's it, that's the one. Beat me to it, Miss Jenna. That really is the one-stop shop. I mean, it even has an awesome search function where if maybe you don't know exactly what you're looking for, but you kind of have an idea and you have some keywords, you can put it in the search function and it'll search the entire website for information of that particular. Like if you want to look up more EFM particular policy, just type in EFM in that search function, and then hit search, and it'll populate all the places, major places where it talks about EFM, etc. So I definitely encourage. I know I tell all my sailors, new chiefs, right? We have to have My Navy HR on our homepage at some point to make sure that we are keeping up with all the changes, and definitely under the portion in My Navy HR that talks about specifically the question that we have tonight, the questions that we have tonight is under My Navy HR, and I'm pulling it up as we speak live, so that way under I apologize, under career management and detailing specifically, and I'm on my cell phone, so I don't know why this is a little slow, but we're getting there. And under enlisted, you have you have not only every type of community that your particular spouse may be a part of, where the detailers take the time to put out specific information that directly corresponds to a rate or to a community, but there is a senior enlisted marketplace page on there, and that page has a quick snapshot of what the senior enlisted marketplace is. It has all the latest instructions that you can look at to see maybe you want to see the black and white to see exactly what's being said. That's on there. An FAQ section is on there. So that is also another great resource, especially as you navigate this new CPO life, about what that's going to look like from now until the future of promotion going forth in the senior enlisted marketplace.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to stop recording and then I'm going to read a couple questions out of the chat.
Okay, outstanding.